will be publishing before the end of this year, and I'm actually a very great writer along the lines of Oliver Wilde. These are his glasses, by the way.
Glasses, you know.
And just like that, we are at episode 2. So, highlight of my day, I changed the wallpaper on my phone.
To what?
No, we don't get to ask that question. Just, it was the highlight of my day.
Now I want
It's something
to know.
that makes me happy, like every time I look at it. Well, happy, sad.
What is it? No, you have to tell me or show me.
So there was this other thing that happened. I'm not going to show you.
Okay.
Do you know how, like, when you when you're active on social media and you don't get any engagement,
Yeah.
and how it's like, you know that it's not a reflection on who you are or your self-worth, but like the fact that nobody likes a post. So I've been thinking about that all day because I tweeted something yesterday
And nobody.
and I got no.
I mean, Twitter's tough. If you aren't active there all the time, the algorithm will make you irrelevant and not show you to
And
people.
then I deleted it.
Because nobody reacted to it. That's terrible.
Because I couldn't have this thing exist. I don't even know what that says about me. I couldn't
Terrible.
have this thing exist that had 0 engagement.
I'm very excited about today's episode and topic.
Okay.
Just disclaimer, we didn't plan to wear plaid on the same day in the same color. 300 kilometers apart.
Yeah. When you showed up, I was like, oh my God, we are matching. And I was gonna do my
The
cap
last
today.
time we matched
And then
was about 20 years ago.
48 years ago.
Oh my God, and I think I actually have a photo of it right here.
No.
I think
No.
I do.
Not agree. We did not agree upon this. You can't.
But it's like, you know.
No. Oh God. You're
like,
cutting that out.
No, we're not.
You are. You're cutting that out.
Okay, so what
I
do
will
you
delete it. You have to give me the login so I can delete it. What am I what?
reading?
Nothing. This week, okay, I'm not reading nothing. This week, I'm reading all of my old stuff that I wrote over the years.
Okay, how has that been?
Oof, painful. But also like cool. Because I'm not a bad
Because I'm actually a great writer.
because I'm not a bad writer. No, seriously, I'm not bad. And so you have like that cringe, like, oh my God, reading your own stuff, but also not cringe because it's not bad.
Okay.
So I'm not deluding myself.
So will any of what you read be reaching the public?
Yes, very soon, actually.
Okay.
I will be publishing before the end of this year. Will be.
Yay! That's big.
But I'm not going to tell you what the book is called. And I will be publishing under a different name. So I don't want anybody to know that.
Oh my God.
I will be
publishing, but it's
publishing,
secret.
but not selling anything. I can't. I haven't reached that point yet.
Why don't you?
I can't imagine looking somebody in the face knowing that they have read words that I've written.
So am I included in this?
Everybody, even my dog, everybody is included.
I would like to think I'm in better standing than Hiccup when it comes to Yo. But it's been a weird week for me as well. Like so I'm reading Order again. And Order seems
Okay.
to be like my safety blanket book when I'm having a tough week. And I kind of grab it off the shelf and read it. So nothing new really to report on that front.
Okay. And your self-help situations?
It's still going, especially because, so we've recorded this like a couple of weeks in advance. So it's a full moon today. So I was thinking of getting back into some full moon.
Is it today? I thought it's tomorrow.
I think it's today.
Okay.
I think it's full moon in Pisces or something. So I was thinking of doing some journaling and whatever just around that. Maybe pull out the tarot. Haven't touched them in a very long time. But yeah.
I started journaling this week, which I haven't done in a while.
I feel a pull to get back into it. So I think I might have an intentional night.
Okay, that sounds nice. My night will be intentional horror.
Do you know what time it is?
What?
Do you know what time it is?
Are you going to say hammer time?
No, fun fact time.
Okay.
Okay. So this one was kind of cool. Fun fact. Christie came up with her stories, the plots for her stories, while eating apples, relaxing in a warm bath.
I mean, that sounds made up. All of the stories were thought up that way?
Maybe not all, but most of her plots.
Did she like Pavlov herself into like every time she's in a bath with an apple, she gets a story idea?
I mean, the next time I see her, I'll ask.
I don't know. I mean, Agatha Christie, all very good, but can we just say this is the same woman who also believed she was the reincarnation of Anne Frank?
This is the same woman who apparently had amnesia and booked herself into a clinic. I would love to do a piece on Agatha Christie. She had a very interesting life. She was a character.
But now, okay, so on that, there's a difference between having an interesting life and then making an interesting, like, I think she just told stories, even like not just the fiction she published. I think she was a little bit cuckoo beans.
I don't. I mean, who are we to call Agatha Christie? What have we done? We're sitting here. What is that thing? Oh my God, this is such an opportunity for like a stoic moment, and I forgot. The credit lies not with the critic. Is that it? Is that the quote?
I don't know.
So anyway, I'm not going to call Agatha Christie
cuckoo beans.
I don't know enough about her life, but I would like to. Maybe we'll do a feminist historian piece on Agatha Christie next.
Not a bad idea. I'd like to get into it and just figure out why she lied all the time.
I mean,
like, why, Agatha? Why are you lying?
Like, think about it, Bren. Think about
Soaking in a bath, eating apples, and this is how I got all my book ideas. I turned myself into one of Pavlov's salivating dogs, except I salivated murder mystery novels.
Do you know what? It was the one thing that was like, I was watching, I don't know, some episode of Marie Forleo, and she was saying how it's like ingrained in us that the one thing we all want to be, that's the most important thing in the world, is interesting. That's like the most important thing to.
That sounds like an Oliver Wilde type thing, right?
The Wilde.
Oliver Wilde.
It's Oliver Wilde. Is he Oscar's brother, lesser known brother, who struggled to get his works published?
He was the reincarnation of Anne Frank, actually.
Oh.
Oliver Wilde. This is what happens. Like, this is why we should not record in the evenings and keep it to mornings It's Friday evening. So Oliver Wilde exists. He's a real person.
For Wilde. That's the name of the episode.
Embarrassing. Oh my God.
I'm not cutting this out. Oh yes, that's
Oh, I will be publishing before the end of this year, and I'm actually a very great writer along the lines of Oliver Wilde. These are his glasses, by the way.
Glasses, you know.
Oh my God. Oh.
So I thought it would be kind of fun if you wanted to take a guess as to what today's theme is going to be.
No.
Yes. Are you ready for this?
Oh my God. I am not prepared. I'm not ready. I want to cry.
I had a lot of fun after last week's very emotionally taxing situation research, which was also great. I really enjoyed it. But like after you were talking about A League of Their Own, and I watched
You watched it.
I was like, okay, I get why you've been rewatching this series. And then I rewatched the movie. And that was just atrocious. I cannot believe we ever enjoyed that. Like,
I loved the movie and I watched it a few times. That movie has a few rewatches with me, but I'm glad I didn't watch it like now. Not after your scathing review.
It's, you know what? I'm surprised women made anything of themselves with the messaging and just how that came through Hollywood and that we've been bombarded with over decades. The fact that we still came up and like
still made progress, despite.
It says a lot. So anyway, just to kind of,
I want to mitt and ball too.
Right? And this one's so cool because we picked it up at the secondhand market and there's like a handwritten thing here.
Aww.
And it says very good, and then I can't make out anything else. And I was like, I imagined somebody giving it as a gift after a really nice game. I don't know. It's really gross though inside.
Not gross, it's nice.
It obviously needs treating, like the leather or whatever. So it's like there's bits. I didn't actually get this specifically for the video. This is huge. When I told him the topic of the podcast today, he was like, "Oh, I have a mitt," and I was like, "I can use it." So, okay. So, A League of Their Own. Just to kind of touch on a few things with the movie versus the series, because I just want to.
I'm so happy right now. I mean, I'm happy to be here because any opportunity to talk about this show it makes my day. So this will be the highlight of my day, not my wallpaper.
Oh.
Okay, go.
Okay, there was a lot that bothered me about the movie, specifically just the way they were treating women and the way they were okay with it. Then the way they treated the story. If you look at the way the story was treated with the movie and the series, it's like, what were they even thinking? And I even found, okay, just before I get into that, like, do you remember Marla from the movie? She like her hair all over.
My shame. Yeah, I remember her.
It was like a joke, right? She was like the joke. She was awkward and funny and whatever.
They made her the butt of all the jokes, yeah.
But she was a hell of a batter. And that's why she was recruited. But Marla's story ends in the middle of the season where she gets married and her husband takes away. I mean, in the middle of the season. Why would you write that? And that's like her happy ending. Why would you write that? Why wouldn't her husband let her finish the season? Why did they have to get married right away? Why did she have to get married to have a happy ending?
Why did a happy ending have to come, like, rest on the back of a man when she was busy forging her happy ending all by herself?
So she had to leave the first season. She was part of history. She left to get married, and that was a great thing. It was celebrated. And Dottie throwing the game because her sister was basically a big baby.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like, oh, this is why women can't play baseball, because, that's what they do. They make decisions based on emotions. And the black picture scene, oh my God. 15 seconds is how much they gave. The issue of women of color and the
Did you
lead.
time it? Is it really
No,
15
because I'm not the
seconds?
only one. I didn't have to time it because in researching my
Oh,
outrage on the scene, somebody else timed it. 15 seconds. And that's all they said. And then get this. I found a quote of the original screenwriter, one of the screenwriters of the movie, saying, it did bother us, right? So it did bother us that in order to be historically accurate about the league, the game, we could not have a diverse cast, right? So shame.
yeah.
Historically accurate. That's the phrase he uses, because A League of Their Own is historically accurate.
Yeah.
The 15-second scene is his way of acknowledging the racial injustices, which only basically allowed white passing Latinas to play with white people.
Can we get a name of the screenwriter who said that?
Yeah, so it's Lowell Gans. Lowell Gans. I just wanted to say that he said, in order to be historically accurate, right?
Yeah. They couldn't have a
Historically,
diverse cast.
the Rockford Peaches never got to the final. They weren't in the final.
Oh.
Historically, they said that Dottie and May's character were based on real women. So I went to go try and find out about the real Dottie, right? She played for 7 seasons. So why did the movie write her as this person who left after 1 season to go and have a family and kids? It's like they were completely, they were disregarding history for their own narrative, actually.
Yep. Where it was convenient for them.
Exactly. And they made up all the other supporting characters. So why couldn't you add your diverse cast in a creative way to get their narrative across? So that's bullshit. Anyway, so I took a quote from Will Graham and Abby Jacobson just because I like them.
Because they are.
So their take was, we're really leaning into the fact that Black women weren't allowed to even try out. Our version is very much about the inclusion of women in professional baseball, but it's also about the inclusion of white women and white passing women in professional baseball. There are really heavy scenes that we're also exploring in a major way. So it's like, it's the same story, but it's just like the movie left me feeling angry, and the series made an impression and made me feel things and made me, yes, it wasn't real like none of the characters are factually based on real people, but you get it. You know what I mean? So
instead of feeling angry, well, for me, it wasn't anger. I felt seen. I felt understood. So they were telling the story, but with such sensitivity and heart that you could tell that they were trying and that they actually cared about the story they were telling.
They cared.
To that point. Yeah, to that point. And you pick up on the care taken in each character and each storyline. And to that point, you don't, I mean, yes, there's the anger, but you feel, or I felt appreciative of the fact that they did it the way they did it.
I think the series, I don't know, it deserves awards because the way that they dealt with things, it was funny, it was moving, it was deep, it had layers. And that sounds like cliche, oh, it had so many layers, but it did. And they treated it with such care, the story. And I mean, I've already now said the whole Rockford Peaches gets to the final, but I don't want to give too many spoilers just in case.
Yeah.
I mean, I make no promises.
I just wanted to say on your bit about they weren't based on, some of them were based on real people. And I learned in the week that Clance was actually based on an actual cartoonist of the time, and she drew for the Defender during
Oh,
the. I'm trying to just find her name.
that's pretty
Let
cool.
me just.
No, I definitely think what I mean with based on it's, I guess loosely, like for example, Max is actually gets inspiration from three real people, and that's Tony Stone, Mamie Peanut Johnson, and Connie Morgan. So there were three Black American ball players, female ball players, who played in the Negro League, played with men. So
Yes.
our character is loosely based on all three of them. But let's face it, it's not a documentary. It's not, the facts aren't like 100% lined up and follows the life, of that person 100%. It's still a story. There's still, you know, anyway. The only reason I was driving that home was because I thought this Mr. Gans was talking
Yeah.
shit.
Is full of shit. Her name was Jackie Orms.
Jackie Arms.
Yeah.
So she was Jackie O. Huh.
She was Jackie Orms.
Um. So yeah. So in the real league, players were forced to wear lipstick. So there were some things that are 100% true. So in the movie, they make a big joke out of the whole etiquette charm school bit. So they like prance around.
Yeah.
But the series was more accurate with, if you didn't pass, if they weren't happy with your performance there, you were out. So that actually was what happened. So the players were forced to wear lipstick on the field because every woman wants to have an attractive and pleasing mouth. Players faced fines
Priorities, people, priorities.
of $10 if they wore pants or shorts outside of their living quarters, which again came through in the series quite accurately. 3 strikes and they are thrown out of the league. So any kind of infringement. One player was even told to stop wearing girls' Oxford shoes because they were excessively masculine looking. And I actually
Wow.
found something quite amazing while researching for today. I found the original guide for all American girls that somebody actually kept. And it says
Yeah.
how to look better, feel better, and be more popular. This is what was handed to women when they first joined the league. And on the first page, so now explains everything. And on the first page, it says your All American Girls Baseball League beauty kit, because they were each issued a beauty kit. And in it, cleansing cream, lipstick, rouge, medium rouge, because we only have players of one complexion, cream deodorant, mild astringent, face powder for brunettes, because you need to really, you can't be too pale. So I guess brunettes have a darker complexion. I don't know what the reason.
Oh.
Hand lotion and hair remover. So that was the basics. But if you read through the guide, and I'll share a link for it, you'll see that it's really each woman's responsibility to truly know what her beauty needs are and to set a routine for herself. They do give you suggested beauty routines for after the game, morning and night. And here, I love this. Underbody. Unwanted or superfluous hair is often quite common. And they tell you how to get rid of your body hair. So it's basically a whole guide. There are some exercises in it, but it's a whole guide about what you can wear and how to look. So there was a big emphasis placed on that, obviously, because they needed to protect, I don't know, femininity, I guess, is how they were looking at it. But obviously, most notably, women were forced to play in skirts. So the one difference is it wasn't the chocolate guy who they said that started the whole thing. It was actually Wrigley of the bubblegum fame, who he like inherited the business and the baseball team from his dad. You know, Wrigley's gum.
Yeah.
And it was his idea to start the women's league during the war, not the chocolate guy.
Oh.
He was the one who put the rule about skirts in because he thought it would be more pleasing to the eye.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking now of the male gaze. It was all done.
Yeah, exactly. So basically in 1943, when at the end of the first tournament, it was actually the Racine Bells who beat the Kenosha Comet. The Rockford Peaches didn't get to the finals, but they did end up winning the championships 4 times during the 11 years.
Oh, wow.
And then, so I just wanted to touch on, because this isn't actually my story for today to share with you.
Oh.
Afterwards. But I wanted to touch
Okay.
on some of the 2 players that 2 of the 3 players who inspired Max, because there are a couple of anecdotes that like really hit home. So Toni Stone was the first woman who was signed to play in the Negro League. So she was the only woman on the team. And she played second baseman. She was recruited to replace some guy who was famous. I didn't write his name down.
Okay.
So she was recruited to replace him. And she apparently later in life was very proud of all the scars that she had on her wrists and forearms because she got them when the men would slide in. They would maliciously slide in spikes first when she was trying to teach her a lesson that she
tag them when she wanted to tag them.
Yeah, that she didn't belong. And they would tell her to go home and make her husband biscuits. So that's something she had to deal with. But she dealt with it. And something I thought was amazing, while they were forcing the women in the league to wear skirts, they tried to do that with Stone, and she refused. So she played in men's uniform.
That's good.
Like, fucking A. And then Mammy Peanut Johnson, she actually tried out for the women's league. So that's where that scene comes from, with the whole Max trying to try.
Okay.
So she tried to try out, but she wasn't allowed to because she was black. And then she ended up being the first female pitcher in the Negro League. And then I thought it was really cute. Maybe that's the wrong thing, but it's really cute how she got a nickname of Peanut. Because on her first match, she stepped up to pitch, right? And then the batter on the opposition team was obviously like heckling her and stuff. And then he tells her, "What makes you think you can strike a batter out?" Or shouts at her, "You're not even any bigger than a peanut," because she was 5'3". And she doesn't say a word. She struck him out in 3 pitches, and he had to like and that's really cool. She was really
and that's how it's done. They
were both actually signed to the same team, the Indianapolis Clowns. And Toni Stone actually recommended Mammy Peanut Johnson, which I thought it was cool, to replace her on the team or something like that. So I thought that was cool. A League of Their Own kind of got me on this journey. And then I was watching something where it was the June panel at the 2022 Tribeca Festival. And Mabel Blair, who is a former AAGPBL, I mean, that doesn't make it any easier to say. I don't know why. She was a former member of the league. And it partly inspired League of Their Own. One of the characters is based on her. Lucy admitted, out of the 650 players in the league, I bet you 400 was gay. She's 95 now when she was at the panel. I think it's a great opportunity for these young girl ball players to come to realize that they're not alone and you don't have to hide. I hid for 75, 85 years, and this is basically the first time I've ever come out. So she came out at
95
on a panel. Her family didn't know. She came out while on this panel at the Tribeca Festival. And I was like, this is good television. Because how
And this is the
something
importance of representation. I mean,
yes.
that's the argument you make when somebody gets all upset, about black elves in Lord of the Rings. It's like it's necessary. It's necessary that we have these people on screen and the stories on screen, because whether you are 11 or 95,
Mm.
it makes an impact.
And I
And she
just thought
obviously didn't have that.
she was
I think it's
amazing.
beautiful. I think it's
Died in
beautiful.
95.
And I
And
mean, she could have gone her whole life without saying anything. At
exactly.
95, what are you coming out for? But the fact that she did it, I feel it's just so, so
I
amazing.
love the whole, and I think like especially that bar scene, the bar scene in um the series where they're raided. That was extremely disturbing. So to go from watching that to seeing this woman brave enough to come out like on an international platform, basically.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot of things to feel bad about in the world, but I was like proud to be a part of humanity at that moment.
Mm.
It was really nice. Okay. So I've come across a lot of terms because I don't know anything about baseball. I mean, we're in South Africa. Baseball isn't really a big thing here. So like I
Mm.
didn't really know what like batting average was and like
Oh,
things like that, right? So now I'm going to tell you because it's
okay, awesome.
important. So a batting average,
For when we start our team.
yes. But I want new gloves.
And we're not going to play in dresses or lipstick, please.
Yeah. I kind of like the outfit.
You can play in a dress.
I kind of like the outfits. I might just want to be like a mascot. I'm not good at like running. So,
You can be the catcher.
okay. I caught a ball once and
I caught a ball one time.
in primary school, I tried out for cricket and I thought I could do
Okay.
it because there is a lot of running. And then I was like
You
fielding.
field,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a lot of
There
running.
actually is a lot of running, yeah.
And I caught it. And I lost feeling. I caught it. I lost feeling all the way down my arm. And I never went back to cricket practice after that. So I don't know if you want me on your team, but I'll give it a go.
Okay.
I'll give it a go. I might want to be the coach chaperone. That's a fun job. You know?
Okay, let's get to the terminology.
Okay. Batting average. It's a measure of the batter's performance calculated as the number of hits divided by the number of times at bat. So, in a season, a batting average of .300 or higher is considered excellent. An average higher than .400 is nearly unachievable. The last Major League Baseball player to do so was Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox in 1941, who hit .406.
Wow.
So are we all paying attention to the numbers? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
0.4 is Einstein. 0.3 is Bill Nye. Bill Nye? No, Bill Nye is average. 0.3, like 0.4, let's put Einstein at 0.3 and Stephen Hawking at 0.4.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I'm happy with that.
Then so that's kind of, so we know anything over
Bill Nye, why the fuck did you say Bill Nye?
I don't know where Bill Nye comes from.
Because I was like, Bill Nye. I don't know.
Did you mean
Bill
Ben
Nye? No, Bill Nye. What? Oliver. Ben Nye. Oliver Wilde.
Ben Nye and Oliver
friends.
Wilde.
They were best friends. They were roommates.
Oh my god. So anyway, Dorothy Dottie Cammons Heck, I don't know how to say it. I hope I'm pronouncing her surname correctly, is the inspiration for Dottie, Gina Davis' character in the movie. So she played, this was her actual life, right? She played for 10 seasons, was selected as an all-star 7 times. Basically, every time an all-star league was assembled, she was selected for it. In 1946, she was the league's top batter with an average of .316.
Okay.
And again, she won the distinction in 1947 with .306. So while that is excellent, I mean, you still have Ted Williams who hit a .406, and you might be thinking, oh, maybe men are just, biologically
better,
superior.
Yeah.
But would that be the case if I can share the story of Joanne Weaver? So that was just Dottie, who was the inspiration for the movie.
Dottie, yeah.
But just like to go back to her, the men's baseball team from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, wanted to recruit her. So they actually offered her. So she would have been the first woman to play with men.
In the major leagues.
Yeah. But because she thought the team only wanted her for publicity, she turned them down. And we're going to go into this in a few minutes, a lot of the time women were used as a draw card. You saw what they made them do in the series and even in the movie. They had to put on a show. It wasn't just about playing the sport. So she didn't want to be. You do notice that in Gina Davis' character, although she does do the splits while catching a ball. She is very like her.
It's like, make up your mind, woman. Do you want the attention or not?
But she did it to like save the league. So I don't know. But
do we know if that's really Gina Davis doing the split? How deep did your research go?
I did not extend to Gina Davis. She eventually left after her 10 seasons because of back injuries. So she left the game because she could no longer play the game. She didn't leave the game to go have a family. And whatever. So I wish they would have brought that into. I mean, if she really wanted to have a family, why couldn't they write it so that she could have both? Anyway, back to.
I have an answer.
Yeah.
Although Gina Davis could do the splits, she couldn't slide into it. So it's not her doing the splits in the movie.
Who is it?
A stunt double?
That name I would like to find out.
Yeah. A woman that doesn't deserve credit, apparently. Yet another
one of those.
Yeah.
So anyway, what was I saying?
She left because of back injury.
Okay, so going back to Ted Williams and his .406. So anything higher than a .4 is considered nearly an unachievable goal. And Ted Williams was, the last major league player to accomplish anything of the sort. But then we go to Joanne Weaver of the Women's League. She was the youngest of 3 sisters to actually play in the league, in the final years of the league. Her sister Betty was actually the power hitter, winning 3 consecutive batting titles and several all-time records. Then in 1954, Joanne Weaver hit a .429 is what I mean. It's crazy.
That's Stephen Hawking out of his wheelchair.
And we don't know her. Like, it was just annoying. Anyway, so in doing research about the Women's League that sprang up during the war, I was like, okay, so how long have women actually been playing baseball? And then I came across something called the Bloomer Girls. And they were the first women to be paid to play baseball. And they took the field for their first game in 1875.
What?
Yeah. They couldn't vote or own property in their own names, but they could play baseball. And they played it in floor-length skirts, underskirts, long-sleeved, high-necked blouses, and high-button shoes. Like,
That's badass.
That's badass.
So were they recruited to play, or did they decide they wanted to play?
There's a few different stances, obviously, because watching women play ball, it's always been a bit of a show. So there are some historians, a historian who I didn't like when I was reading her take on things, and then I found out she died this year, and then I felt bad, but I still feel like her
People
opinion,
die.
yeah, because her opinions were very much through the lens of the patriarchy, and I was just like, you're a woman historian talking about women's baseball. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'll share some of that later. But so sometimes it was men who put the teams together, and usually in those cases it was a lot of actresses on the field, so it was like a burlesquing of baseball.
Oh my
So it's like
goodness.
a show. But I mean, you can never pull an across the board thing. I'm sure there was a lot of women out there who just really enjoyed playing baseball, and this was the only way they can do it. So do we judge them for that, or are we like,
Yeah.
excuse me,
You
they
do
were
you,
trying
girl.
to play within the framework they were given?
Mm.
And then I was like, why is it called Bloomer Girls, right?
Oh my God.
By the late 1800s, America was in love with the bicycle and a woman named Amelia Bloomer, who sported loose harem-style pants that changed the game
Mm.
forever. So that's why we call them bloomers.
Bloomers. Because of Amelia Bloomer.
She started the whole harem pants thing. So in the late 1800s, the women who played baseball started wearing these bloomers, and that's why they were called bloomer girls, because they didn't want to play in their floor-length skirts anymore. So there were no leagues, and these teams actually never played each other. So the all-women teams didn't play against each other. They played against local semi-pro and minor league men's teams, and usually they won. So I thought that was very interesting. Bloomer girls were around from 1890s to about 1934. And that's obviously when the war, that's when the Depression era
Okay.
hit. And then after that, it was World War II. During this time of the Bloomer girls, this is actually the story that I wanted to tell today. It's the story of Vern, Beatrice, Jackie, Mitchell, Gilbert.
Now that's a name.
That's the name. But she went by Jackie Mitchell. So I'm just going to call her Jackie Mitchell. And she played for the Chattanooga Englets before signing for a time to a men's team where she pitched Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. So that's the story we will go into today.
Oh, I love this. Thank you, Will Graham and Abby Jacobson, for giving us this great podcast topic.
So I'm actually going to read a bit from an article that I found on Smithsonian Mag. I'm going to share some links because I'm obviously going to be leaving stuff out, but I love the way Tony Horwitz tells the story.
Okay.
So Jackie Mitchell was a 17-year-old southpaw who pitched against the New York Yankees on April the 2nd, 1931. The very first batter she faced was Ruth, and he was followed by Lou Gehrig. They were known as the deadliest hitting duo in baseball history. In fact, I think they actually called that batting lineup Murderer's Row. So like, she's a 17-year-old girl stepping up to the pitch.
Pitching legends.
Pitching legends. So Deborah Shattuck is actually the historian that I was talking about. So she's a leading expert in women's baseball, and I'm going to be quoting her a couple of times in this article. So she basically just reiterates how a lot of the Bloomer Girls matches was more of a show and a burlesque of the game. But I still believe that it cannot be a blanket statement to cover everything.
Yeah.
However, around the turn of the century, a lot of women athletes with real undeniable ability started competing with men and sometimes playing on the same team in semi-pro leagues. So the very first one to appear in the minor leagues was Lizzie Arlington in 1898. So Lizzie Arlington wore bloomers while pitching for the Reading, Pennsylvania Coal Heavers. So Jackie Mitchell wasn't the first woman, but she was the first woman to be signed. So she was actually signed onto the team. She got a contract. Well, she was 17. I don't know if I should call her a woman, like a young lady. I don't know.
A young woman.
So she is from Memphis, and she was tutored in baseball by her neighbor and a minor league pitcher called Charles Arthur Dazzy Vance, who would then go on to lead the National League in strikeouts for 7 straight seasons. Mitchell's family then moved to Chattanooga, where she became a multi-sport athlete and joined a baseball school affiliated with the city's Class AA minor league team, the Lookouts. She then attracted attention with her sinking curveball. So that's just, I guess, a ball that curves, but they call it a sinking ball because it goes like lower. There's like
it dips.
Yeah. And it's not a fast ball.
Yes.
Look at
yeah.
The Lookout's new president, Joe.
The mascot position is actually looking better and better the further you get into the curveball.
I mean, I would be really good at morale. I was like the official happiness officer for the team. And I think logistics. I enjoy logistics.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Joe
settled.
Who was the new president for the Lookouts. So he was known as a showman and a promoter, right? So some of his stunts, he once traded a player for a turkey, and which he then cooked and served to sports writers. So he liked to do things like this to get into the news. He liked to draw crowds.
Okay.
Remember, if you don't draw crowd, you don't have anything. You need to draw the crowds.
He was Lady Gaga in a meat dress.
Yeah, basically. So he managed to book the Yankees for 2 exhibition games against the Lookouts as the major leaguers traveled north from spring training. A week before their arrival, he announced the signing of Jackie Mitchell to what's believed to be the first professional baseball contract given to a woman.
Wow. And she was 17.
She was 17, 1931. The prospect of the 17-year-old girl facing the mighty Yankees, obviously, he did get a lot. He got what he wanted. He got the media attention. And one paper wrote, I want to throw up a little in my mouth while I read this. The curves won't be all on the ball when pretty Jackie Mitchell takes the mound. I wonder if they even saw her, or if they just used these words to describe women, because she was very petite. She wasn't like, Marilyn Monroe out on the pitch.
She was a child. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Another reported that she has a swell change of pace and swings a mean lipstick.
Oh.
Lipstick. And so the other tidbit was that when she was warming up, she would take out a mirror and powder her nose for the cameras. And while that would be funny, after watching the series, I was actually a little bit disturbed by it, because she was really forced to do it, whether she was that kind of person or not. Whether she was a Greta or not, she had to be a Greta in order to just play ball, which, Anyway, this brings us to the game. 2nd of April, 1931. There was a crowd of 4,000 fans and journalists. The Lookout starting pitcher surrendered hits to the first 2 batters. So the manager decided to pull his starter, and that's when he sent Mitchell out to the mound to face the lineup of what became known as Murderers Row. So that was Ruth and Gehrig. So first up was Ruth. So this was a journalist's account who was there.
Okay.
He tipped his hat at the girl on the mound and assumed an easy batting stance, the reporter wrote. Excuse me. Mitchell went into her motion, winding her left arm as if she was turning a coffee grinder. Then, with a sidearm delivery, she threw her trademark sinker, a pitch known then as the drop. Ruth let it pass for a ball. which I discovered is when you don't swing, and then it's okay.
Well,
And
no, it's not just when you don't swing, it's when you don't swing, but it doesn't cross over the plate either. If you don't swing and it passes over the plate, it's a strike.
Okay. Thanks.
Is it? Yeah. I think a ball.
Is this
has
one
to
of those
not-
situations where neither of us are experts, but we're going to come to the answer and just accept it as fact?
No, man. I think it doesn't. Like, it sort of goes. It doesn't go over the plate, and that makes it a ball.
Okay. Well, Ruth let it pass as a ball. At Mitchell's second offering, Ruth swung and missed the ball by a foot.
Maybe we should both be mascots.
Are you listening to me?
Yes,
At
sorry.
second
Yes.
offering, Ruth swung and missed the ball by a foot. He missed the next one too, and asked the umpire to inspect the ball.
It's like when you trip and you inspect the ground, like it's nothing, not your problem. There's something wrong with the ground on which you're walking.
You just
There's something up with that ball.
Then, with the count 1-2, Ruth watched as Mitchell's pitch caught the outside corner for a called strike 3. Flinging his bat down in disgust, he retreated to the dugout. Next to the plate was Gehrig, who would bat .341 in 1931. So he was definitely on form. So it's not like he was seeding, at the end of his career or whatever.
Yeah.
So he and Ruth would actually tie for the league lead in homers. So they were both still on their game. He swung at and missed 3 straight pitches. So she struck out.
That's embarrassing.
Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig on her first time on the mound. But she walked the next batter, so the Lookouts manager pulled her from the game. But the Yankees then went on to win the game 14-4. This obviously caused like a crazy sensation in 1931 with a 17-year-old girl striking out 2 of the biggest names
in baseball. Yeah.
The paper read, "The prospect grows gloomier for misogynists." Ruth, however, because he is such a great sportsman, was quoted as saying, "Women will never make good in baseball because they are too delicate. It would kill them to play ball every day." And unfortunately, the bruised ego combined with the fact that the baseball commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, agreed. He voided Mitchell's contract that she signed on the grounds that baseball was too strenuous for women. And then it became a law that women couldn't play baseball.
So, okay. So not checking with the women playing.
No, women don't know what's good for them.
They just decided this is too strenuous for you guys, and therefore you shall retreat.
The president of the organization overseeing minor leagues later termed the appearance of a female mound artist a lamentable burlesquing of the national pastime, akin to greased pig contests and hot dog eating contests.
What?
So that was the end of Mitchell's career in major/minor league baseball. Women were no longer allowed to play. It was now a law. It wasn't over for her though. She didn't want to give it up. So she actually joined a team called the House of David. So there was minor and major league baseball, but then there were all these other teams that also popped up that would tour around the country, and they would often play in towns that didn't have a professional squad. But it was very much like vaudeville and circus meets baseball, because they needed to draw the crowd if they weren't or major league. So for example, there were teams of fat men, there were teams of one-legged men, there were teams of blind men, and they were all brother teams. The House of David was named for a religious colony in Michigan that sought to gather lost tribes of Israel in advance of the millennium. So that's who she was playing with. They were celibate, vegetarian, and devoted to physical fitness. So that actually led to the creation of a pretty good baseball team. They had shoulder-length hair and biblical beards. So I guess that's what was the vaudeville circus bit that drew people. In fact, this team was so popular that it actually inspired a few spin-offs, including the all-black colored House of David. So they were very popular during the time. So they would definitely draw crowds. They started recruiting players from outside their community. So in 1933, 2 years after she pitched
Pitched.
Ruth and Gehrig, she signed to the House of David. So she was 19. But since then, she was playing with other amateur teams. But yeah. So then she went on tour with them, and her mother came along to chaperone. And they actually ended up playing the Cardinals, which is a major league.
What, the Cardinals? Oh, okay.
St. Louis Cardinals. So with the House of David, they played the Cardinals and they won. So that was quite something. But she eventually grew weary of the team circus type antics. And in 1937, she retired from baseball completely and went to work for her father's optical business in Tennessee. I mean, I don't blame her. Do you blame her? I would.
Yeah. No, you can't. You can't. I mean, I wouldn't put up with it either.
Because you just want to play ball. Now somebody comes in riding a donkey. Like,
And
that
turns it into a circus.
That was a real thing. Or the players were just like performing sleight of hand tricks. Like,
oh my God.
So, yeah, so that was in 1937. Obviously, in 1943 is when the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League came into play. And then in 1952, another woman followed Mitchell into minor leagues. And that was Eleanor Engel. She was a softball player. And then she joined the Harrisburg Senators. But she didn't play. She was just pictured in the uniform in the team's dugout. She didn't take to the field, but that was enough to cause a ruckus. And the president of the minor leagues stated that no contract with the woman would be approved because it was not in the best interest of baseball. So she didn't even get to play. That such travesties be tolerated.
Oh boy.
I mean, even Marilyn Monroe weighed in on this. There's a quote from Marilyn Monroe saying, "The lady should be permitted to play," said the actress, who would soon marry Joe DiMaggio, who is a baseball player.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of a better way to meet outfielders. So this is another example of women having to function within the framework that is given to them. Because she couldn't just say, or I guess she could. Why didn't she just say, let her play? Why did she have to make it into a sexual marriage
thing? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the story of Jackie Mitchell. I think it's quite strange that was in the 50s, right? That women weren't allowed. Only in the 70s, a lawsuit won girls' entry into Little League. So that was in the 70s. In the 80s, women broke into men's college ball. So that was great. And then in the 90s, Isla Borders joined the St. Paul Saints of the Independent Northern League. But no female player has yet reached the majors.
In 2022.
In 2022. But get this. So because of all of this, this is where this is going, which raises the question.
Oh my God.
That lingered since the day she took the mound in 1931. Did her pitching really fool Ruth and Gehrig, or did the two men whiff on purpose? Because it's so unimaginable, right?
Yeah.
So there are two schools of thought. So some people think that she actually did do it. And some people think it was good for media attention or whatever. So I'm going to share kind of both sides. Joe Engel signed her to attract publicity, which he's known for. That part, is a given. Some news reports on the game hinted at a less than sincere effort offered by Ruth and Gehrig. Of Ruth's at bat, the New York Times wrote that he performed his role very ably by striking out before the delighted Chattanooga crowd, while Gehrig took 3 hefty swings at his contribution to the occasion. that doesn't necessarily have to read as fact, because that could just be trying to appease the male ego. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no
Mm.
way. They definitely were in on it. There's no way this actually happened. They definitely gave her permission to strike them out, you know. And then obviously the game was originally scheduled to be played on April 1st, but it got rained out. So they played on April 2nd. People are
So like
thinking
it's
it's
an April Fool's
a
joke.
fool's prank. If Ruth and Gehrig were in on the orchestrated stunt, they never said so, wouldn't they?
Especially coming back to that male ego thing. I think that would be the first
Especially
thing
the
they
male
do.
ego. So pitcher Lefty Gomez said to the Yankees manager Joe McCarthy, was so competitive that he would never have instructed any Yankee to strike out.
Mm.
Third baseman Ben Chapman, who was due to bat when Mitchell was pulled from the mound, said that he had no intention of striking out. I planned to hit the ball. But he had suspicions that Ruth and Gehrig agreed between themselves to strike out. It was a good promotion, a good show. It really packed the house. When, like, Mitchell's take on it, right? For her part, she believed that she genuinely struck out the two Yankees.
Mm.
She said that the only instructions the Yankees received was to try to avoid lining the ball straight back at the mound for fear of hurting her, because women are very fragile.
And they could break.
She's quoted as saying, right before she died in 1987, actually, why they were trying, damn it. Hell, better hitters than them couldn't hit me. Why should they have been any different?
Oh.
Also, she saved the newsreel, which shows her hitting the strike zone on 3 consecutive pitches to Ruth. On 2 of them, Ruth flails wildly at the ball. His fury on the 3rd strike looks theatrical, but the images are too blurry to tell how much speed and sink Mitchell had on her pitches. Is anybody looking at the newsreel of any guy during this period looking for speed on their balls to see if they're like, this is crazy. Why is she being inspected so closely when her male counterpart is just taken as a given, their talent? Anyway, Deborah Shattuck, the one who died in March, she's the historian of women in baseball, since she is skeptical. But I think it's because she's older, and the older generation is very much still within the patriarchal lens. I really doubt she could hold her own on that level. And that's what made me mad, because who are you, Deborah? Did you know Jack? Did you know her personally?
I think Deborah was mad that it couldn't be her. That maybe she struggled to hold her own.
Yeah. But then Tim Wilde, so I was like, you go, Tim, was really like an ally. And he is the Hall of Fame research director. And what he had to say was, much of batting has to do with timing and familiarity with the pitcher, and everything about Jackie Mitchell was unfamiliar to Ruth and Gehrig. He also added that she was a left side armor facing lefty batters, a matchup that does.
I was also thinking.
Yeah. So Ruth striking out, and he says Ruth striking out isn't a rarity. Apparently he did so more than 1,330 times, actually, throughout his career, leading the league in that category 5 times. So with those stats, he's still kind of saying, like, statistically, yes, she could have beat him. But I feel like with those stats, Deborah, why can't you open your mind a little to the possibility of this happening? Why are you so against it?
That makes it even more likely that she would strike him out.
Because Wiles continues that he wonders if sports writers and players who suggested that the strikeouts were staged did so to protect male egos. Even hitters as great as Ruth and Gehrig would be reluctant to admit they'd been struck out by a 17-year-old girl. So, whereas here's this other guy, John Thorne, the official historian for Major League Baseball. So he's probably like 80. He disagrees, obviously. He believes that Ruth and Gehrig were in cahoots with the Lookouts president and went along with the stunt, which did no harm to their reputations. So how dare we insinuate otherwise?
They are
whole thing
still
was,
manning, the manly men.
yes,
They are
but
full of mans.
his statement actually got me so worked up that it triggered a little bit more research, because he said the whole thing was a jape, a jest. Jackie Mitchell striking out Ruth and Gehrig is a good story for children's books, but it belongs in the pantheon with the Easter Bunny and Abner
What?
Doubleday inventing baseball. So I was like, this is ridiculous. You don't know, John. The fact that these people are so, like, if they just say, you know what, all I wanted from them is maybe,
I love how mad you're getting.
because they don't know. But the fact that they're fronting like they do, like, give me a break.
And the
Anyway,
Easter Bunny? Screw you, John.
because I was like, who is Abner Doubleday? But first, John goes on to say, because he was asked if this breakthrough of like women playing in the majors, does he think that women will play in the majors in his lifetime? The historian pauses before replying, if I live to 100, yeah, maybe it could be possible. This guy. John, you are irrelevant. That's all I have to say. Because
I cannot with John right now.
And they won't stand for this. Anyway, so I was like, who is Abner Doubleday?
Oh my goodness.
Who is
Abner Doubleday? What is Doubleday?
Apparently, that Abner Doubleday is the inventor of baseball. And then I was like, okay, but
how do you invent baseball?
Like the game, how to play the game, because there was some anecdote from somebody who apparently went to school with him or whatever. And I was like, okay, if Abner Doubleday didn't invent it, actually, who did invent baseball? And it looks like the most accepted idea of it is that it started off as a folk game, like most games do in some sort of iteration, and then eventually became distilled, and it's what we know as baseball today. But the first,
don't tell me, was it a girl?
No, no, we don't know because it was too long ago. But the first, I guess, notes about baseball as a sport or whatever, as a game, was like in the late 1700s. So there are some records of it. But then as clubs, so I think it's the New York style of baseball is what we know as baseball.
Yeah.
So clubs playing baseball as we know it today was recorded in 1845, maybe 1838. So that's pretty recent. The first woman to be paid to play baseball was in 1875. So in my logic, if you have a team of women playing baseball and they're being paid in 1875, logically, women have been playing the game before that, right?
Yeah.
They were playing the game before that.
Yeah.
So, and that's 1875. The first club was recorded in 1845. That's like not even a generation. So women have been playing baseball since the invention of baseball, essentially. So why aren't we in the majors?
And why is it taken as a man's sport?
Exactly. And also the enjoyment, the passion for it, it's been there since the beginning. And it's just, I can't wrap my head around why it's 2022. Why haven't we seen, it's basically a non-contact sport. Why have we not seen women?
So is this the birth of our baseball academy? I feel like it is.
I mean, I don't think I should be trusted to teach baseball, but I feel like I could be very passionate about
sticking it to the man.
Just something. But yeah, so it was,
I don't get it either. It doesn't make sense. So we've been playing as long as they have. We are as good as they are.
And also women are being used or have been used. We are used to train men. So you can play in Little League, you can play college ball, you can play training, you can pitch to men and train with them and get them ready for the season. In fact, they actually use women also at games, I think, with some of the foul balls to catch the foul balls. So like we're running around all around them, but we're not allowed to play. It's like Specs and Bunchies. You play with
Oh.
Specs and Bunchies. This is the beginning of time.
That's terrible.
Because like just we have as much experience, and the fact that women hold their own in a professional arena without professional training, they don't have the resources thrown at them that men do, and yet they're still
I was going to say it's probably money and also space. Nobody's taking their space. Nobody's taking up the space.
So I'm like, all women who are good at baseball need to show up at these tryouts. Force your way in. Because you
rob
have
the
like,
motherfucking bank.
Yeah, rob the bank. Because things are changing. This series has changed so much. I think this is actually what was needed to change the face of baseball.
We need to send this podcast to Will Graham and Abby Jacobson and be like, get the women in the majors. Get them to the majors.
There needs to be a movement. Why isn't there a movement to get women in the majors?
This is what I was thinking. Why isn't... I mean, we've had it in cricket, we've had it in football, we've had it in... It's starting up now in rugby, kind of. Tennis, I mean, it's its own thing. So, like, is it a case of... I don't even know. Like indoctrination, that it hasn't occurred to them to take the space? Because women have taken their space in other major sports around the world and excelled over and above the male version thereof. But so maybe listen to me. I'm like,
it have to be
maybe because it hasn't occurred to them. It hasn't occurred to them to be great. Maybe you should tell them.
A male-female version. I think women, it should be integrated because first of all, male-female doesn't apply to some people, to a lot of people. We can't have this outdated way of sport.
Of thinking, binary thinking.
And especially in a sport like baseball, where your biological sex really has nothing to do with your talent or your skill or your capabilities. Like, even soccer, actually. Soccer, why do we have men and women soccer? Why do we have... Okay,
do you know why?
Tennis.
Do you know why? It's because of the pay gap. Because they're afraid if they let girls on the team, they're going to have to pay girls as much as they're paying the boys. And we can't have that.
I just thought it was astounding. And like even the standards, like, you know what sportsmen are like. Like, just for example, Babe Ruth's reaction to him being struck out, throwing the bat down, and like in this handbook, there's actually a whole section on good sportsmanship. How women are supposed to behave, even if you even no matter what, behave, have good manners, you know. And it's like, why? And if you think about sportsmen today as well, this ego, there's this major ego associated. And it's like nobody's checking that. Where's their etiquette handbook?
Where's their lipstick?
Where's their lipstick? God damn it.
So, for any of you astute viewers out there, you might be noticing a slight change in lighting and costume. And that's because life happens. So we basically had to stop what we were doing yesterday and pick it back up again today. So,
I mean, I personally think I'm very convincing. I'm wearing the same cap. I'm pretty sure that's good.
I do. Fresh out of the shower, so it's a cap for me as well. Quick segment.
Okay.
It's my turn to ask you a question this week. So my question is, what is the first book you remember reading? I think I might have asked you this before.
No, you haven't.
Okay, what's the first book you remember reading?
Wowza. The Enid Blyton, I think, the tree one. Like reading on my own, like a book.
Mm.
Well, I mean, there's the boring ones from school, the Kathy and Mark, but then
Oh, yeah.
like a book that I went and got for myself in the library and that I enjoyed reading was The Tree. I think it's called Far Away Tree, or when they're climbing
It's
the
not
tree.
the wishing tree?
I don't know,
Is
but
that
that was the one book that I remember thinking to myself, I really enjoyed that. That was awesome.
the magic faraway tree?
Faraway Tree, yeah, the magic faraway tree.
But
That's
then there's also Up the Faraway Tree. There's actually a faraway tree collection.
Oh, they were climbing up it in the book and meeting different things.
Oh, so then it's probably Up the Faraway Tree. Okay. Have you read much of Enid Blyton?
I went through Enid Blyton phase as a child.
Okay.
And then, well, who's the Fantastic Four? Is that also Enid Blyton or somebody different?
I don't think it's Fantastic Four. Isn't it
Fabulous Five.
Fabulous Five? Fantastic Four is the superhero thing.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't a comic. The comics I read was like Archie. And
Is it Fabulous Five? And who's Secret Seven?
The Secret Seven. That's it. There was definitely a number and it was a group.
So Enid Blyton.
Is it Enid Blyton?
Secret
Okay.
Seven.
So then,
Who's
yeah.
Beatrix Potter? Is she the talking animals?
Yeah. So she's like Peter Rabbit. I
Beatrix
also enjoyed
Potter.
Jemima Puddle Duck. I enjoyed her book.
Okay. So I have read none of Beatrix Potter or Enid Blyton.
And then the first book I cried for was Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim.
Oh, really? Wow, I don't remember the first book I cried for.
I was like, books are emotional. Nobody told me this. It was just supposed to be an escape.
Wow. I mean, that's formative. That's something you should remember.
Maybe
But
as
I
a
don't.
trauma response, you blocked it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe it's like a part of my don't give space to anything that causes you pain. It doesn't exist.
What is the first book you remember reading?
It's the same answer to the question you asked me last episode.
Oh.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. And I think I actually cried.
That's maybe why it's one of your favorite books.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favorite. What was your question? I think.
What is the book that you've read?
Oh, that I'm embarrassed to say.
I mean, I don't know why you would be embarrassed about it. It's like you being embarrassed about taking your dirt out. There's nothing embarrassing about it.
And I still do it. I find myself like when I'm taking out the dirt, and then it's like I find myself looking around. So I'll open the door, and before I take the thing out, I first check to see that nobody else is in the street. And if I were to see another person, I'll just come back in. That's my plan anyway. But so far, I've been safe. I haven't.
Nobody's spotted you doing the.
Nobody has spotted. Nobody has spotted me taking out my dirt. I don't know what it is. I'm just easily, or not. It's not embarrassed. It's just I'm painfully aware. I'm painfully aware that I'm here in this body.
It's so like independent and empowered, you know?
What?
Like taking your own dirt out. Like this is my spot.
I mean, it felt good the first few times I did it, and then after that, it just becomes like, oh my God, why are we throwing so much away? Maybe we should keep this.
The scarcity mindset.
I wonder if that goes away, or if do you think that's my personality? That hyper awareness of being in my body and the fact that I'm this meat suit, and like, because when I walk, like even the steps that I take, it feels conscious. I know it's not conscious, but it feels conscious.
Do you think that's like a form of anxiety? Because I get that, but it happens to me when I'm in a space like that makes me feel anxious, like going
Unsafe.
out into public, like going and being around people. Then I become like hyper aware of the length of
Like,
my nose.
why is my shoulder like this? And am I breathing
Yeah, like I'm
properly?
walking alongside.
Yes, like what's my head doing? To the point where, like, if somebody were to speak to me, like out in the wild, if somebody were to approach me and speak to me, it's like I forget, and then I stumble over my words. I say stupid things. But that's probably because I'm in my head all the time, and then somebody speaking to
Talk
me is
about import export. But I think
like, I really like your t-shirt, and it's like, lady, I don't even know that I'm here wearing clothes. What am I even wearing?
let me quickly
How do
think
I
say
how do I exist? Let's talk about the import export situation we have going.
regarding cereal in particular. Yeah, but I think also with the pandemic, it definitely made it worse. I was never the most at home in crowds and stuff to begin with. And like with the pandemic, because I didn't have to be, so that exposure was limited, which was great. But now I get a lot of anxiety before attending even a family event, even just going into a store, a grocery store. It's like I do mental check.
Grocery stores. Oh my goodness. For what do you ask yourself? I ask myself a series of questions when I enter a space.
Yes, like,
And the first,
do I have
what are the
shelter
questions?
right now or not?
What? Oh, okay. No, mine is usually the first question I ask myself is, um, and I suppose this comes down to like wanting to be invisible. Oh my God, this is like trauma 101. But like the first question I ask myself is, do I fit in here? So when I walk into a grocery store, for instance, the first thing I notice is the type of people. Who are the other customers? Are they all old? Are they mixed? What races are they? Do they have like the big trolley? Are they there for their monthly shopping, or are they carrying a basket? Like, what's the vibe here? And then judging by that, because that's me walking in. And if I see a majority of people with baskets, I'll be like, oh my God, I'm not going to be the one pushing a trolley. And then I grab a basket too. And then I tell myself, I'll just come back later if I need anything.
Oh my God.
And then I pick up a basket too, because I don't want to be the guy that everybody's with baskets, and then they're like, "Oh my word, look at this chick! She's got a
I think
trolley."
the thing we all need to realize is like nobody cares. Nobody cares about anybody else. Everybody is so all up in their own head. Like,
But then it feels like a win for me, and then I'll be like, "Yes, okay, I've got a basket too, so that's nobody's gonna
what
notice me."
annoys me, well, not annoys, or that I guess I'm hyper aware of. So we like started shopping in a new town, right? So we're outside of a couple of towns, and we would go to the one town, but now we do our shopping in the other town. And one of the reasons for that was it was just a more diverse town. So because we're a mixed race couple,
Interracial.
well, thank you for correcting me about what I am.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
An interracial couple, and just rural towns in general, it's difficult because you always feel like you have to represent for all interracial couples. You know what I mean? Like if we have,
Okay.
then people are gonna, oh yeah, that's kind of and make a judgment about all interracial. Or like I feel like I'm representing all English people of color when
Okay.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And then that makes me hyper because like, oh my God, what kind of impression am I leaving on these old folk here? Like,
Yeah.
what is going to be the lasting impact of that impression for other people
Yeah.
who might come here? And then I'm like, I should have done by air today. I should have walked back. I need to see. But like at that point, it's exhausting to go out because it's like, can't you just
It's so stressful
Black.
for me, like grocery shopping, because it's like, do I fit in? And then my brain has to do that like split second scan of how best I'm gonna fit in. But then my next question is, do I have a stain on my pants? Like, has my butt suddenly started leaking? You know,
Anal leakage. Anal leakage is
anal
your
leakage.
number one worry. when
So
stepping
first
out.
question is, do I fit in here? Second question is, did I have spontaneous anal leakage? Because that's like my biggest fear is that I'm going to be walking around thinking I fit in. Meanwhile, there's going to be like a stain on the back of my pants, and everybody's going to know that my butt's leaking.
God.
And this is like just me going to get milk. I don't even know.
So what would you do? Like, what do you do when you come here and we go to the shops? Because we don't fit in.
That's it. I do. It's a road process. It's habit. It happens to me anyway. And this is not just me going grocery shopping. This is me walking in. So even when I come visit you and I walk into your house, these are the questions that go through my mind.
Yeah.
I try to feel what's happening in my pants without touching, because then people are going to know. They're going to be like, why are you touching your butt? So I've actually developed a way to walk. I can feel, then I'll be like, no, my pants are definitely dry.
But what happens like in summer? It gets damn hot here in summer. Like, what about the sweat? How do you know the difference between sweat and anal leakage?
Don't see, so that's when I'll be like, so then you will notice my body language will change. You won't see my back. I'll like be facing you head on the whole time. I'll be facing you head on the whole time, and then the earliest opportunity I get, I'll go to the bathroom and I'll go check, and I'll be like, okay, there's no anal leakage. You're fine.
Have
And
you ever
then,
had anal leakage?
no, I haven't. This is why I need to go check, because I don't know the difference between sweat and anal leakage.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how we got from Enid Blyton to Enid.
What is the pipeline? The Enid Blyton to anal leakage pipeline. That was fast.
Title for this episode.
Yes, that's going to be the title of the episode. Okay, so to get into my story, we waited a long time to kind of get to this not so happy. It's not going to be a happy journey, but there's a lot of I don't even, can I say the F word? I don't know.
Fucking.
Oh no, there's a lot of what the fuckness.
Oh,
in this case, which is what drew me to it in the first place, because it reminded me of another case that I don't know if I'll cover, but maybe we'll see. So today I'm talking about Jodi Arias and the murder of Travis Alexandar. This is next level crazy ex-girlfriend stuff that we're going to be getting into. So for my research, I used Google. Stephanie Harlow, shout out to my favorite YouTube true crimer. Hey?
How did you find out?
Thank you, and shout out to you too for introducing me to her. And then also Cryptic Soup Pod, which is a new podcast that I discovered that was actually it's actually really good. And if anybody is that way inclined, check them out. Cryptic Soup Pod.
Are they all true crime?
I only listened to the episode on Jodi Arias, so I don't know. With Cryptic there, I mean, do you think they cover cryptids as well? Maybe it's just like, and because it's like a cryptic soup, maybe it's just a mix of everything. That's what the title's giving me.
Okay.
Anyway, so to get into it, on June 9th, 2008, Travis Victor Alexandar's roommates found him dead on the floor in his shower. From the 911 call, the operator asks one of the roommates how they know he's dead. Is there blood? Where's the blood coming from? And the roommate says, it's all over the place. And you'll find out why when we get into it.
Oh my God.
So this 911 call is available on 911 on YouTube. There's actually a lot of information on the case that's really available for anybody who wants to check it out. So fun fact, there's a Lifetime movie about this case, and it's called Jodi Arias' Dirty Little Secret, and it's available on Prime Video if you want to watch. So like I said, you can hear the 911 call on YouTube, but basically his roommates hadn't seen or heard from him in days, and his room was eerily quiet. People started asking questions. They went in to check on him. The door was locked, so they had to get a key to get into his bedroom, and that's when they found him.
So he's in his bedroom.
Yes. So, okay, we'll get into that. So Travis, he was born on July 28, 1977 in California, Riverside, California. And he had a rough childhood. He was one of 8 siblings, and his parents were meth addicts. So he grew up in an abusive household. They were really poor. They had no food or clothing. Whatever money they got went to their parents' drug habit. And when he was 10, he ran away to go live with his grandmother. And this is where he was introduced to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka LDS, aka the Mormons. So he got really into the church, and his whole life became about being a good Mormon. And it's like, because growing up, because he was poor and the environment that he was in, he never had a lot of friends, and being part of the church gave him a sense of belonging. This is somewhere I fit in. Oh my God. Somewhere he fit in. And so obviously it became very, very central in his life. So I don't know if you're not into like true crime, or so you probably don't know much about the LDS church and the rap that it's been getting lately. No. There's a lot of documentaries that's come out recently about the church and thing. Yeah. That could probably be an episode on its own. But just a few things about the LDS church. So like some of the rules and restrictions that form part of their faith. So Mormons believe in living, and this information I got from a BBC article and a Telegraph article.
Okay.
Through Google. Mormons believe in living an ethical life that's pleasing to God. Ethical means sticking to the rules, and boy, do they have them. They believe in honesty above all things. Mm-hmm. Some things that are banned: alcohol, tobacco, sex before marriage, ! Condoms, contraception, it's not really banned, but they don't encourage it because they believe that when you use contraception, it's like you're blocking God's will. Like the spirit children of God need to arrive on the planet, and they won't be able to do that if you are stopping them. Tea and coffee is also not allowed.
Tea?
Drugs, yeah, tea and coffee. So caffeine. And they also discourage, is the opposite of encourage, discourage caffeinated drinks, so like soda. And then drugs, obviously, murder, abortion, suicide, tattoos, foul language. You should avoid foul language, and occult practices. And with the no premarital sex thing, that is all sexual practices. So no making out, no heavy petting, no masturbation, so nothing. Obviously homosexuality and porn are sort of like under the same umbrella. Interracial marriage was banned until the late 70s. And even though it's sort of like unbanned, I think it's more of a PC move than anything, because they're still,
frowning upon it.
Yeah. And it's like the same with homosexuality. It's like we don't hate the gays, and we welcome them into the church, but they should know that they will have to follow the rules of the church, which don't allow gays. So it's like, you can be gay, but don't be gay. Don't be gay. So anyway, Travis became really active in the church because he finally found a place that he belonged. And one of the is it a tradition or is it a requirement? But for young men in the church, they have to go on a 2-year mission with the church, and this sort of qualifies them to get a wife. If they haven't gone on this 2-year mission, they may not marry, kind of a thing. But also this mission is expensed to the young boy. Like, the church doesn't pay for it. So Travis worked really hard growing up and saved up, and then he went on this mission. He moved to Denver, Colorado to serve the church, and in Denver he moved into a faith home. So it's like a fraternity, but a church fraternity, so like a monastery but with Mormons.
Okay.
And so he lived in this faith home with other brothers of the church, and basically they keep each other in check, like to make sure everybody's following the rules, but they also help each other to find a wife, I suppose. And
just found a wife on this mission.
I don't know if you're supposed to, but that's kind of the idea.
Okay.
That's the idea. So Travis dated around, but he never quite found.
And do they
the
date
one.
Mormons?
Yes, they're only allowed to marry Mormons. They're not allowed to marry outside of their church.
Yeah.
So he eventually goes on to buy a huge house in Mesa, Arizona, where he invites younger Mormon brothers to rent rooms there. So this is the house he was living in when he was killed. And it was apparently this huge house, and he had the entire top floors. That was his bedroom, bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And then the other rooms were rented out by the younger Mormon brothers. He did have one serious relationship with a girl named Diana, and they were reported to have had premarital sex, but they weren't ready for marriage. Or Diana wanted to get married, but Travis didn't want to, and then they ended up breaking up. So it's sort of just rumored that the two of them had sex, even though it was against the rules. So it's not confirmed. But there's this urban legend. Have you heard of soaking? Okay. So it's also known as marinating or floating, according to Wikipedia. So soaking is a sexual practice whereby the penis is inserted into the vagina. This is a loophole that they found, that the LDS Church found in their rules. So you can put the penis into the vagina, but you can't thrust. So soaking is basically just putting the penis into the vagina and then leaving it there. So the church has come out to say that this is an urban legend. It's never happened, whatever. But there are reports of people saying, like, yes, they actually do this to get around the whole no sex before marriage thing. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, in the practice of soaking, there's usually a third party. There's usually a third party called a jumper.
Oh, for the movement.
So then they have a third party who either will jump on the bed to simulate movement between the couple, because it's like, hey, I'm not doing it, so I'm not having sex, kind of a thing. So it keeps them pure. So they'll have the jumper jumping on the bed to simulate the thrusting, or they'll be under the bed and like kicking it from the bottom to get them to, which is very strange. Okay, moving along. Travis worked as a salesman for an MLM, and he did really well. He actually ended up working his way up to being executive director of the company.
Wow.
He did motivational speaking for the company and then for the church as well. So he was really charismatic, I guess. Then in September of 2006, his work sent him to a conference, the MLM conference in Vegas. And this is where he ended up meeting Jodi Arias. And they hit it off immediately and were pretty much inseparable from that weekend on.
Mm-hmm.
So, which brings us to Jodi. She was born on July 9th in 1980 in Salinas, California. And according to Cryptic Soup Pod, she shares her birthday with O.J. Simpson, which I thought was crazy. She was the eldest child, and according to reports from her old babysitter, she was really aggressive as a kid and often abusive towards her siblings and her mother. And later on, when she was on trial, Jodi refuted those allegations and said it was actually her mother that was abusive toward her. She was the abused one, kind of a thing. At the age of 10, she got really into photography, and it's something that stuck with her throughout her whole life. She loved taking pictures and hoped to make a career out of it. So this is important because of the evidence found at the scene. Not important, but I mean, it'll tie into everything.
Okay.
So she was really rebellious growing up, and ended up dropping out of school in grade 11. She had an older boyfriend. She was 17 at the time, and her boyfriend was like in his 20s, and she ran away from home to go live with him.
Mm-hmm.
Then she ended up cheating on him with his roommate, who was a Buddhist, and he tried to bring Jodi into the Buddhist faith and to help like get her life on track or whatever. And it worked for a while, but then she found him cheating on her and broke the whole thing off and moved out. Okay, so now we meet back up with Jodi when she's 22 and working as a waitress at a hotel. So now she's there and she gets into it with her boss, Daryl, who's way older. I think he was like in his 40s and she was 21, 22, freshly divorced. And the two of them they start a relationship. But sort of like the first red flag, which is all well and good up until this point, when I heard this about her, I was like, okay, maybe something's not quite right. Because she started modeling herself to Daryl's ex-wife. So she made, hey?
Like her physical appearance?
Her physical appearance. So she copied her hairstyle. She got breast implants. And it's like, it was so weird for me because it's like, she's his ex for a reason. Why do you want to look like the woman he didn't want to be with? Kind of a thing. But anyway, it's just sort of probably the first sign of Jodi is like chameleon. Whoever she's with, she tries to sort of enmesh herself in their world or life, or it was easy for her. Anyway, Daryl and Jodi end up buying a house and they live together. She wanted to get married, but he wasn't into it because he's been married, he had kids, he didn't want to do the whole spiel. So that was a huge thing in their relationship, and they ended up breaking up in 2006. So also in 2006, Jodi took a job. She joined the MLM to earn extra cash and ended up going to a MLM conference in Vegas. So now the two of them have met and they're totally smitten with each other at this conference weekend.
Yes.
Sorry?
She's not Mormon yet.
No, she's not Mormon.
Okay.
So they exchanged numbers and they went their separate ways. So he's in Arizona, she's in California. They live about a 5-hour drive apart. But things escalated really quickly between them. So that weekend, they spent the whole weekend together. And then after that, they were calling each other every single day, talking for hours. And even though they just met, they spoke about like values and marriage. And, it's like they skipped the what's your favorite color part of the getting to know you, which is I found it so strange. And they were only together for 4 months. But part of the evidence, there were over 82,000 emails exchanged between the two of them, which is insane. And sort of like speaks to that obsessive attachment thing. Anyway, so things heated up really quickly, and only a week after meeting, they began a sexual relationship. So apparently, they didn't have sex the weekend of the conference, but a week later, they met up at Travis's friend's house. And so his friends were a Mormon married couple. And obviously, because of Mormon rules, they said, yes, it's fine. You guys can stay here, but you'll be staying in separate rooms. But everybody knows that doesn't work, because once his friends were asleep, he snuck into Jodi's room, and the two of them started their sexual relationship.
I don't trust Travis because he's not a very good Mormon.
So, right, and he like becomes an elder in the church and everything. But I mean, we'll go there. This is the thing, and this is what I meant when I spoke about like it's got a high level of what the fuckness, because usually, I mean, nobody deserves to get murdered. Oh my God, nobody deserves to get murdered. But he wasn't a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they were both just not great people. So according to Jodi, they never had vaginal sex because that was against the rules. Like Travis told her, we can't have vaginal sex, but we can do everything else. This is what he told us. So blowjobs, anal, they did everything except the vaginal penetration, because according to Travis, God was fine with that.
Okay.
You know?
So he made his own church rules.
Or that was his interpretation of his church rules. So also around this time, this is like a week and a bit of knowing each other, Travis gives Jodi a copy of the Book of Mormon, and he asks her to think about converting because they can only be married if she becomes Mormon. And then in November, so that was in September, right? In November of 2006, Jodi was baptized into the LDS Church. And Jodi says that after the baptism, Travis took her home and had anal sex with her against her will. That's according to her. But we will learn that we can't trust everything Jodi tells us. So then after that, they go their separate ways again. She goes home and he's in Arizona. And then it's December and Travis has his family and friends over, but he tells Jodi that she can't come. And she is understandably pissed off because she's like, okay, I converted to Mormonism. Is that even a thing? Mormon? I became a Mormon for you. I'm taking it up the ass, quite literally, and you don't want me to meet your family. So she was pissed off.
Because he said we can only get married if you turn Mormon. Makes it sound like he wants to marry her.
Like Travis, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like
because also with this Diana girl, is that what happened when he was like, oh, we can do this, whatever, marinating or what is it called? Soaking.
Because she, again, like in that
we are
case,
going to get married.
In that case, she wanted to get married and he didn't want to, and that's when they broke up. So this seems to be a pattern with Travis, like he's using the girls.
Okay.
So, but he doesn't know Jodi. She shows up anyway and introduces herself as his girlfriend. And she didn't book a hotel, so she has to stay there, you know, like just acting as if everything's normal. Travis was really upset about this, like her just showing up and whatever. And apparently he treated her really badly. He made her sleep on the floor. Didn't give her like a blanket and a pillow, nothing. He was just like, this is where you're going to sleep, on the floor in the living room. Because I didn't tell you to come here. It was just, and this is kind of when things start going wrong for these two, as if things were right before then. But anyway, so Jodi is confused because what the fuck, Travis? Like, I'm a Mormon now. Aren't we supposed to be together forever? And then he tells her that they weren't really exclusive. And she was more like his dirty little secret, which is where the title of the Lifetime movie comes from. Nobody knew that they were having sex. Nobody can know. And he's not even sure that he wants to get married. Like this wishy-washy.
What ass?
This is from Travis. Yeah. It's not great. It's not a great look. Especially if you consider all the hoops that she's had to jump through.
And anal.
Anal hoops that this poor girl had to jump through.
I shame Jodi. Okay.
So in January of 2007, Jodi goes to see the Travis's friends who they stayed at that first weekend. And she tells them that things aren't great between them, and she feels like he's just using her for sex because he's not like giving any kind of commitment or whatever. So obviously saying that, now the good Mormon friends know that they are breaking God's heart. They are having premarital sex, So it obviously causes shit with for Travis within the church and his friends because they're
He's
not
like
supposed
a
to be
leader
having sex.
in the church.
And then it's as if this was sort of like Jodi taking a shot at him, like manipulating the situation, because she must have known that would happen, that it would cause trouble for him in the church, but also within his close relationships. And then she also produced emails where Travis was calling her names like slut and skank, and she's his whore, and it just gets messy.
So she showed these emails to his friends.
Friend who tried to intervene. I can't really remember. I glazed over that part because I was fuming. But the friend tried to intervene because she felt for Jodi. But Travis managed to twist it in some way or whatever. It didn't come to anything. Let's just put it that way. So this is January 2007. Travis is dating somebody else. But because he has to be a good Mormon, he and Jodi were still having a friends with benefits relationship. So he couldn't
sleeping with him.
Yeah. So he couldn't have sex with his good Mormon girlfriend, obviously, because that's against the rules. But then he got his kicks from Jodi, who
mistress.
Yes, he's skank. And then Jodi ends up, because she was now 5 hours away, that's too far for her liking. So she ended up moving to Mesa, Arizona, which Travis didn't like because that was a little bit too close for him. But now she pretty much had full access to him. And even though he reportedly told his friends that he wasn't into her, he didn't want her there or whatever, he never told her to back off. He never broke things off with her. They still had their sexting, their phone sex, everything still carried on. So one night she found messages on his phone. While he was sleeping, she went through his phone, which is the picture of good relationship health. And she found messages that were apparently of a sexual nature between him and another woman.
So not his girlfriend, somebody else.
Somebody else. But she doesn't tell him. So she finds this out and she doesn't tell him that she saw this message. Why? Because they have a vacation planned in Cancun, Mexico, and Jodi wanted to go. She didn't want to have to break up with him before the trip.
Oh my God, shame Jodi.
So she wanted to go away with him. Anyway, so she played it off as totally cool. We are friends with benefits. Whatever you do, you, and I'll do me. But she was extremely jealous and possessive. And that came out in different ways. Like when he was dating, because then after the first girl in January, he started dating another girl, Mimi, which was a lot more serious. And when she found out about Mimi, Jodi slashed his tires. But then get this. So she slashes his tires, and then he comes out to now find his tires slashed, and she's conveniently in the neighborhood because she lives close by. And she's like, oh no, this is so terrible. I'll take you to the police station to go report it, or no, not to report it to. I'll take you to get like the tires fixed, like being the supportive friend with benefits kind of a thing. And then so anyway, they go do this, and then driving home, she follows him. So he's driving home and she's following behind, and then he takes an exit that's not going home, like he's obviously going somewhere else. So she texts him and she tells him that you missed your exit, kind of a thing. And then he responds by saying he's not going home, he's going to Mimi. So she's pissed off, and then she slashes his tires again. So, I mean, okay, so she slashed his tires twice. She broke into his house through the doggy door. She would crawl in through the doggy door to like gain access. And like one of his roommates said that one time he came home, nobody was home, and he came home, everything was locked, but he walked into the kitchen and he found Jodi baking cookies. Like, you know, everything's fine, nothing to see here. She stole Travis's diary. Also, like, what grown-ass man keeps a diary? Or maybe that's too judgmental. But I mean, why are you keeping a diary, boy? What are you writing in there?
His conquest, probably, because
It was just so weird. And then this is now things that he like told other people. Travis told other people that she would do. So she stole his diary, and apparently she would hide in bushes and take pictures of him when he was with other women, stalking him. She sent him threatening emails, and she also got a burner email account. I don't even know if that's the thing. I just call it, like a burner phone. So she got an anonymous email account, and she would send threatening emails to the women that he was dating as well. So with all this going down, what would you do? I mean, if you were Travis, why aren't you telling her to why aren't you breaking it off with her is my thing. Like, why you complaining? You're saying she's stalking you, she's slashing your tires, she's threatening you. And yet you sending her dick pics, you pick up the phone and you're having phone sex with her. So I'm like, what? Then you can't complain, my guy, because you're asking for it. Do you know what I mean?
Both, because she as well. When you see this guy's cheating on you repeatedly, you see him hooking up with other women. He's made it obvious. He's made it clear he's not into you, but you keep showing up. And then for him as well, this chick's obviously unbalanced. You're both unbalanced, but he keeps showing up too. So it's like,
it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the story could have ended way earlier than this. It's like, okay, she's crazy. Let's, call it quits. Anyway, so they continued having sex. He didn't tell her to back off. He didn't call the cops about his slashed tires, nothing. No restraining order. So it's understandable that Jodi's getting, I mean, the mixed signals is blatant. He's telling her he doesn't want to be with her, but yet he's always there. Exactly. So eventually, due to Mimi's influence or whatever, because she was a good Mormon girl, Travis decides that he wants to now get his life on track, and he wants to get back to his faith and get his life straight, blah, blah, blah. And this is sort of like starts him pulling away from Jodi. And because he understood he needed to get her like out of his life if he wanted to be a good Mormon boy. But instead of taking the hint, whenever he went quiet on her, Jodi would sort of like double down, and she would flood his inbox with nudes, and she'd do anything to sort of lure him back. And for whatever reason, I think she knew that he couldn't resist her, and that's why she would do that, like send him nudes and try to seduce him back into her web. Anyway, but Jodi finally gets tired of the back and forth games with her and Travis, and she moves back to California to live with her grandparents. So, but now her grandmother lived, where Jodi used to be in Palm Desert, which is about 5 hours away. Her grandmother lives 16 hours away from Travis. So it's not just, a nice, scenic drive to see him. But you would think that would be the end of it, because it's now
16 hours.
16 hours away. and it still wasn't the end. They kept in contact and exchanged sexually explicit emails and phone calls. They would have phone sex all the time. And then at the end of May 2008, this is pretty much where everything kind of starts ramping up. Jodi learns that Travis invited his girlfriend Mimi to go with him to Cancun. And she's pissed because it was supposed to be her.
So they never went to Cancun. What happened?
No. Other stuff in between.
Oh.
This vacation was coming up.
Oh, it was coming up. Okay.
Yes. So he wanted to go and he ends up inviting Mimi. So she's pissed off about it. But instead of calling him out on that, she calls him and they have an hour-long phone sex session, which she records. Shortly after that, Mimi breaks up with Travis, and there's email evidence dating back to May 26th showing Travis and Jodi having a huge fight, supposedly over this recording. So the recording isn't mentioned outright in the emails, but it's assumed that's what they're fighting about, because it turns out that she was using the recording of that phone sex session to blackmail him. And she likely sent that phone sex session to Mimi as well, which caused Mimi to break up with him. And she was using it to blackmail him because if that got leaked, he'd get kicked out of the church. It would ruin his life. So anyway, this huge fight happens on the 26th, and this is the last straw for him. And he finally tells her to just leave him alone. He doesn't want to see her or talk to her ever again. Then on the 28th of May, that's 2 days after their fight, there's a break-in at Jodi's grandmother's house. So somebody breaks in, random things are taken, including a 25 caliber gun. Next thing we know, so that's the break-in. Jodi's planning a road trip to go visit some friends. So this road trip is across the US and to ultimately end up in Utah to go visit this new guy that she's been chatting to, Ryan Burns in Utah. So in the planning of this trip, she calls up her ex Daryl and she asks him if he has any gas cans that she can borrow. So she borrows gas cans from Daryl and then I think she buys 1 or 2 extra gas cans as well. And then the only stop she makes, like on her way there, is to fill up these gas cans, right? And she gets a rental car. And she phones up Ryan in Utah and she tells him she's on her way to visit because she's going to an MLM conference and it's, in the area. So she'll stop around to see him as well. Then on the 2nd of June, she gets a rental car and starts her road trip. She takes the battery out of her cell phone so it can't be pinged. And she doesn't go to Utah. She drives to Mesa, Arizona, where Travis lives. So she finally gets there on June 4th. And according to reports, they spent the whole day having sex and taking photos of themselves. She apparently dressed up for Travis and did a little strip tease for him. It was just like a raunchy day that the two of them had. This is after Travis told her he never wants to see her again. So they spend the raunchy day. So she's got her camera and they're taking photos. So now, taking the records into account, we have Jodi. Stopping for gas on her way back to California, but not on her way down. And then on the 7th, Jodi drops the car off at the rental place and goes back to her life. On the 7th, she arrives back in California, goes back to her life, right?
So she was originally going to Utah. Did she ever go to Utah?
So she does.
Okay.
After her stop at Travis, she ends up going to Utah to go see Ryan.
Doesn't have to stop, so they don't actually know.
Yes. So when she gets back in her car after leaving Travis, she puts the battery back into her phone and she sees she's got all these messages from Ryan because he's been expecting her and obviously he knows how long it should have taken her to get to him. So he's worried and he's like, where are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then she phones him and she's like, I ended up getting lost. I was driving in the wrong direction. whatever, but I'm going to see you. I'm on my way now and I'll see you soon.
Mm.
And then she also makes a few other calls to Travis, ends up leaving him voicemails, like about, I can't even remember. These voicemails are also available on YouTube. You can listen to them, but it's just talking about normal things like that she misses him and she can't wait to see him or something like that. And the other about their friend Heather has got this thing going on and just normal stuff, voicemails that she leaves him. And then when she gets to Utah, she got pulled over. She got pulled over because her front license plate was missing and the back license plate on the rental car was upside down. So she acts all like flummoxed. She's like, oh, I was parked, I don't know, wherever, and it must be these kids playing a prank on me. I'm going to get it sorted out as soon as I stop, she tells the traffic officer, and that's the end of that. She doesn't get written up, nothing. And so she gets to Ryan. So she is driven, in theory, several hours, days, to now apparently see him. And according to Jodi, she got there, they fooled around a little bit. No sex. I think they made out, fooled around, whatever. And then she left and went back home. Forgetting about the MLM conference, apparently, that she was supposedly going to. She just ended up driving back home. So she ends up returning the rental car on June 7th. So now back at Travis's place, we've got this important work meeting that he had that he never showed up for. And then Mimi, who was supposed to go to Cancun, and he never showed up for that either. So
but Mimi, did they break up?
Yes, so they broke up. Okay, sorry, I jumped ahead. So Mimi and Travis broke up. But then apparently with the trip coming up, he called her and he told her that even though they're broken up, Travis is even though they're broken up, he invited her to go with him to Cancun, and he really still wants her to come. They can go as friends. But I mean, you know how that's gonna go. He just wants to get Mimi. It's like alone in Cancun and to win her back over. Yeah. So anyway, so then Mimi agreed because it was like all expenses paid trip, blah blah blah. So, but he didn't show up for this trip. The trip came and went, and where was Travis? She's the only one, because so now they explain it. So she put in like a wellness check call because she hadn't heard from him or whatever. But his roommates living in the house, first of all, the smell of death is distinct. You're gonna know that something's up.
But if you hold them, maybe they don't go upstairs.
I don't know. According to them, they were like, it was normal for him. Like he would travel a lot, like with work and with the church. So it was normal for them to not have him around, to not see him. Yeah. But then obviously a few days go by, and with Mimi and missing the trip to Cancun, they were like, so, I mean, Jodi left him on the 4th. I think it was the 4th or the 5th that she left him. On June 9th, the one of his roommates goes into the bedroom. The door was locked from the inside. And he got a key, goes into the bedroom, and he finds Travis stabbed to death on the floor of his shower. But he wasn't just stabbed to death, unfortunately. He was stabbed in his heart, in the face. His throat was slit, and then he had several other stab wounds all over the rest of his body. So the cops show up, and obviously the first name, the detective speaking to the roommates, and the first name that they mention is Jodi Arias, because they obviously know about her. And then the creepiest thing happens. While the detective is speaking to the roommates, and they telling him that he needs to check out Jodi for what happened here, the detective's phone rings, and the caller ID says Jodi Arias. So she's calling him while he's speaking to the roommates. And he doesn't answer, for obvious reasons. But when he gets back to the station, they tell him that there's several messages that's been left for him by a woman called Jodi Arias. He's like got a bunch of messages. Then he gets on the phone and Jodi just like launches into it. She gives him like her life story, basically. That Travis is her ex and he was abusive while they were together. She talks about his sexual perversions and how he forced her to have anal sex and do all sorts of like insane sexual things. It's a 40-minute phone call, which apparently had no point. Because according to Jodi, she's not supposed to know that he's dead, remember? So why was she phoning? Exactly. And for 40 minutes, she just went off saying like all these things and like, I don't even know how she managed to spin it. But anyway, so the detective listens to her, hears her out, and he asks Jodi when was the last time she saw Travis. And then she says no, but they're broken up. And she moved from Arizona in April, and she hasn't seen him in months, obviously, because she doesn't live there anymore. But she does mention that she called him on the 4th because she knows that there will be record of those calls. That she spoke to him on the phone on the 4th when she was going up to Utah to visit her boyfriend. So the detective plays along. He obviously has a weird feeling about Jodi. He plays along. He doesn't call her on anything and leaves it at that. But while he was at the house, the murder scene was obviously grisly. There was blood everywhere. There was a bloody palm print on the bathroom wall. And then as he was leaving the bathroom, the detective noticed drops of blood on the washer in the bathroom. So he opens it up, and in the washer, he found a digital camera and some sheets. So he took the camera, obviously, and submitted it for evidence. So this is now all on June 9th. On June 12th, there was an autopsy, and Travis was stabbed so many times that they couldn't determine the exact amount of stab wounds. And the coroner eventually filed like 27 to 29 stab wounds. It was somewhere in that area. It was found that he was stabbed through the heart first, and this would have killed him within minutes. So everything else wasn't even necessary because that single stab to the heart would have killed him. So he was shot once in the head, stabbed several times in his back, right? Stabbed several times in his back, and then his throat was also slit. So on June 19th, the memory card of the digital camera was recovered because everything was deleted on there, but obviously forensics, they recovered over 20 photos, which are available online, although I should include a warning that if you are sensitive to these kinds of things, probably don't seek out the photos because they are graphic in nature, but they are available if anybody wants to look at them. So over 20 photos put Jodi with Travis the day he was killed. But more than that,
photos of him dead or of her with the body?
They were taking photos while they were with her doing the striptease, while they were having sex. But more than that, they put her with Travis as he was being killed. Not just you saw him on the day he died, you were with him while he was being killed. So that's why I'm saying, that's why there's a warning, don't seek out the photos, because what they think happened was, so there are photos of him taking a shower, and then there are more out of focus photos of a struggle of Jodi dragging his body, and then of his dead body lying in the shower. So what they think happened was she went into the bathroom to take photos of him, and then there was a struggle where the camera fell and went onto auto mode, where it started, when it times like a timer, and then it takes a photo, timer, and it takes a photo, because that's what the later photos look like. They're all out of focus, but it's like as they were fighting and carrying on, the pictures were still being taken. On June 26th, the blood test analysis came back and Jodi's DNA was found to be mixed with, so Jodi's blood was mixed with Travis's blood, specifically in the palm print that they found there. And they also found her hair at the scene. So on July 9th, Jodi was indicted by a grand jury for first-degree murder, and she was arrested on the 15th. So how they, just to get into the murder, so Jodi and Travis were together, role-playing, having sex, whatever, and then Travis had a work meeting at 7, so he went to shower at around 5. Jodi went downstairs, got a kitchen knife from the knife block in his kitchen, locked his dog in its cage so that it wouldn't follow her upstairs. Then she went up with a knife in the waist of her pants and she started taking photos. She went into the bathroom and started taking photos of Travis in the shower. He was surprised, obviously, because like, what the hell are you doing? And then she told him he got to take naked pictures of her, so now it's her turn. She wanted to get hot pictures of him as well. So not too sure what happens between then and the first stabbing, but she pulls out the knife and stabs him straight through the heart. Then it looks like he pushed her away, and in her stumbling back, she pulled the knife. She went with the knife, which means he started bleeding out pretty much immediately. But even with that, he got out of the shower and started wrestling with her for the knife. And that they can tell there was a struggle because he was covered in defensive wounds, but also Jodi, because they were fighting for the knife. Her hands and arms were totally cut up. So Travis is weak and stumbling, and they suspect that in him struggling with her, the camera got knocked down and set to automatic timer, where it was taking the random photos of their confrontation. Judging by the blood patterns, they think that Travis must have leaned on the sink in the bathroom because he was woozy from the blood loss. And while he was standing there, that's when Jodi came up behind him and stabbed him repeatedly in the back. Then he staggers out of the bathroom and collapses in the hallway. And there's a picture of him on his back in the hallway. So they think that he got himself there, but then obviously couldn't go much further than that and then collapsed. And then while he's lying there on his back, Jodi goes over to him, kicks him in the face and breaks his nose. Then she slits his throat so deep that it severs his windpipe. Then she drags him back to the shower.
But he's dead already.
Yeah, drags him back to the shower and then shoots him in the head. So that was the last thing she did. And there's a photo of her dragging his body into the shower. Then obviously she realizes that she's all cut up and bleeding all over the place. So she tries to clean the scene and she tries to wash her blood off his body. She strips the bed and deletes all the pictures from the camera, and then she throws the camera and the sheets into his washer with bleach and sets the cycle to wash. And it was around 6 p.m. that she left and went to go visit her boyfriend, where she also fooled around. It's like, this thing just happened. How are you? So besides that, she phones Ryan Burns in Utah. I just got lost or whatever. I got turned around, but I'm on my way now. And then she still sends through those voicemails to Travis, sounding totally normal. And then manages to still fool around with him in Utah before driving all the way home.
So she staged the break-in at her grandmother's house to get the gun.
To get the gun.
Which she didn't even use.
Which what?
She didn't even have to use. If she was gonna kill Travis.
Exactly. So that's the picture that they've now painted using the evidence, and the detective has everything he needs. He shows up at Jodi's grandmother's place and he questions her. She denies everything. She said that she hasn't seen Travis in months. She was in California the whole time. So then the detective pulls out the naked photo that they got on the camera, which places her in Travis's bedroom at the very least on the day he was killed. Jodi still, nope, that was photoshopped. That's not me. So apparently that's her. Somebody put her face on somebody else's body. And there's just so many people who has it out for her, you know. So the detective is like, okay, fine, but what about this? And then he brings out the forensic evidence that shows her blood at the scene and the hair that they found. Okay, so now Jodi's like, okay, I'm going to need to change things up a little bit. This is where this part of the case reminds me of Casey Anthony, where it's like both of them they love to talk, but they don't think things through. You know what I mean? So it's like, so anyway, Jodi's story changes. Now she was there. She was with Travis. They were together, but there was a home invasion. A man with a gun and a woman with a knife. They broke in, stabbed Travis to death, and then the man screamed at Jodi. They went through her bag. They got her license. They found out where she lives, and they threatened her. Basically, they said she has to get out there now, and if she tells anybody, they're gonna kill her and her family. So the natural question is, why didn't you call the cops? And she was like, no, because they told me that if I say anything, you know, I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my family's life. And she really leaned into the grieving ex-girlfriend, friend with benefits, whatever. She sent his grandmother, Travis's grandmother, this long letter about how much she loved Travis. She sent his family flowers. She created like a in-memory page for him on her MySpace account. She even attended his memorial service because she's innocent. She didn't do this. Then on July 9th, she was charged with first-degree murder, which is also her birthday, and she was arrested 6 days later. So if you look up Jodi online, you will see that she was like this blonde, you know, beautiful blonde woman who really leaned into, because she used her sexuality to get things.
What she wanted.
She was that type of person. But once the trial started, it was like a complete 180. She underwent a metamorphosis. Her hair was brunette. She wore glasses, no makeup, very tastefully dressed, you know, all to manipulate the jury. So Jodi, the trial starts and Jodi says she's going to represent herself, you know, because she's innocent. She doesn't know what the problem is. She provided letters that she claimed to be from Travis. Travis handwritten letters to Jodi, where Travis admits to her that he's a pedophile. Then upon investigation, they found the letters to be fraudulent. And so then Jodi, at this point, she realized that she's not in a movie, and she asked the judge if she could have a public defender. I don't know what she was thinking, like that she was going to lie her way out of it, and that they would fall for something like that. Anyway, she put in a plea of not guilty, claiming self-defense. So now the story changes again. Because first it was a home invasion. Now it's like, but we've got you, you know, kind of a thing. So what are you going to do now? So she's like, okay, here's the real story. So she tells them for real now, this is the real story. Travis was physically abusive, and she was scared that he might kill her. So she played the victim card really hard. Like she spoke about her abusive parents and then her abusive boyfriend. And she said that they were fooling around or whatever. Then he went to go shower and she was taking photos of him because now she has to have her story match the evidence, kind of a thing. And then she said the camera slipped out of her hand, and it's a new camera. So because it fell, Travis got really mad, and because he's abusive, you know, he got really mad that the camera fell, and he attacked her, and she was scared that he was going to kill her, so she shot him. But not knowing that he was stabbed first. So she said that she didn't mean to shoot him. She just wanted him to back off, and the gun went off by accident. Then she blacked out. This is according to Jodi. So the gun goes off by accident and she blacks out. She can't remember anything until being at Ryan's place in Utah. She doesn't know how Travis died. So she doesn't know how he was stabbed and all that stuff. And then also, it's like a gunshot to the face and you don't know how he died. Like, what? It just doesn't make sense. Woman, stop talking. As I'm going through the case, I'm thinking to myself, you just need to shut up. You need to stop talking. Anyway, so a bunch of stuff came up in the investigation, like she staged the robbery at her grandmother's house to get the gun. Because she, in her story, like her grabbing the gun to defend herself, she told the cops that it was Travis's gun. But then they matched the bullet to her grandmother's gun.
Oh my God, Jodi.
Then she had a car, but she rented a car. Even though she had a car, she rented a car for that drive. She bought the several cans of gas so that she didn't have to stop and leave a trail that she was going to Arizona. She had dyed her hair so that she wouldn't be recognized. She took the front license plate off the rental and turned the back license plate upside down. It's like it was premeditated. There's no doubt about it. And then in a TV interview in September, Jodi tells the interviewer, no, Judy is going to convict me because God knows I'm innocent. And in that same interview, she says, if I'm convicted or something like that, I will ask for the death penalty. She says it. But I won't be convicted because I'm innocent. So her biggest problem is that she just wasn't consistent. Her story changed too much. And also she just loves the sound of her voice too much. Anyway, for reasons I don't even know, the trial only began January 2nd of 2013, which is like 5 years later. So Jodi was evaluated. Hey?
Was she in jail the whole time or was she out?
No, she was in prison. So Jodi was evaluated because they wanted to determine her mental health, her IQ, you know, all that stuff. But they didn't come up with anything conclusive, aside from she's crazy, but nothing clinical to explain, you know, this is why she did that. On the 2nd of May was closing arguments. On the 8th of May, she was found guilty of first-degree murder. But Jodi did not ask for the death penalty like she said she would. She didn't. So even though the jury was unanimous in the first-degree murder thing, they couldn't agree on whether she should be sentenced to life or whether she should get the death penalty. And because they couldn't come to that agreement, it was declared a mistrial on May 23. I don't know how the American justice system works. But on the 23rd of May, it was declared a mistrial. So there's an interview with Jodi. It's also available on YouTube where the interviewer is asking her or reminding her of her initial statement where she said, if I'm found guilty, I will ask for the death penalty. So this mistrial happens and then she's interviewed again. And they ask her like outright, like, didn't you say that if you were found guilty, you'd ask for the death penalty? Because then all of this can be avoided, kind of a thing. But she dodges the question and doesn't say. She's really smug about it. Like Casey Anthony, she enjoys the attention. It's like she's a celebrity. So she's just, in all her interviews and stuff, you can see she's just lapping it up. She started making art and selling it on eBay while she was in prison to make extra money. And she also started giving prisoners tattoos to make some cash. So she would use pencil lead, mascara, and a needle. And her cellmate, there's an interview with her cellmate where she's talking about how she regrets Jodi or allowing Jodi to tattoo her. So you'd think that she has one, but she let Jodi tattoo her 6 times. I'm like, no, this woman's clearly in love with her.
These people, oh yeah, you know, even with Travis, like, oh yeah, it's But you keep going back and back and
Yeah.
back.
So this is the thing. I'm like, you let her tattoo you 6 times though.
Did you see any of her tattoos?
One of them is Jodi's name on her ankle. Jodi's full name on her ankle. I think she was in love with her.
So I think Jodi used her same weapon in prison that she did out of prison.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I Googled her now and she's a beautiful woman. Like she
Yeah.
is. So she definitely used that to her advantage.
To get by.
But
And I
also,
mean,
she's probably had to do that her whole life, which goes back to the abusive childhood.
mhm,
So, I
it
mean,
does.
it's just patterns.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And I do want to feel sorry for Travis, but I just can't. I'm just
You
going to
can't, right? I
sorry for.
mean, I feel sorry that he got murdered. Like I said
But
before,
I kind of feel like he did it
nobody
to
deserves
himself.
it.
Like, who pushes another human being so much knowing? Because he knows she's unstable, right? He knows it, which is
He
probably why
has to know.
he was
He
playing
has
with
to
her the whole
know.
time.
Mm.
Who pushes another human being that far and then is like surprised by.
No, I mean nobody deserves to be killed, guy. Nobody deserves to be killed. But he's not a nice guy. He
That's
was,
the statement. He's a horrible, horrible
yeah,
man using his position within the church like that.
yeah. Anyway, so there was a new trial because of that mistrial.
Hmm.
There was a new trial in October of 2014. And again, a new jury still couldn't decide on life in prison or the death penalty. And again, Jodi didn't volunteer for death like she said she would. So it was declared a mistrial again. And then eventually, so apparently, like if this happens, if this keeps happening, I think 2 is the limit, then the judge steps in and he makes a call,
Mm.
or they make the call. And then the judge took death off the table and just sentenced her to
To
life, which she's currently serving in Arizona, but as a celebrity. And that's the story of Jodi Arias, the crazy ex-girlfriend who killed Travis Alexander, who didn't deserve to die like that, even though he was a schmuck. I'm sure he had some redeeming qualities. Everybody does. I'm just trying to not offend anybody.
I don't know why, but like for me, it's like I'm sorry, I'm not going to look for Travis' redeeming qualities. No way. Because just the things that he was doing and the way he was manipulating women both in and outside of the church, and we don't even know all the situations because we
Yeah,
only know what's come up, right? And
yeah.
because he travels a lot for the church, he travels a lot for the MLM. So like he's a schmuck. And
But so this brings us back to the LDS church and the stuff that's coming out. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he's a schmuck.
surprises me. I didn't think these things of Mormons. I didn't think this was
Yeah,
a thing.
the things that happen under the banner of
Both
heaven, which
Jodi
is a
and
really
Travis,
good show.
it's just like this perfect example of where you come from and then being an adult and still letting that rule your life and where you end up. Because both of
Yeah,
them could have changed their trajectory.
yeah,
Both of them could have reached, because they were both like adults. They both reached that point where they can either deal with the past trauma. And I know we joke about it a lot, like
yeah.
responses, but it's because you can either deal with it, recognize it, and grow, or you end up like Travis and Jodi, letting your formative years dictate what happens to you.
Define you. Yeah,
Because Jodi, for everything she did, I mean, to be that manipulative, and she had to have been, she's smart and resourced. And that could have been
yeah.
channeled into a whole bunch of other
They
things.
actually did, like in the IQ test that they gave her, they found that she was of above average intelligence, which I feel like for how she carried herself through life, which was probably necessary.
Mm. So I definitely think she could have used that you know, in a different
To
way.
be
And with Travis,
better.
well, him escaping his meth parents, charismatic, building a career. Okay, it is not MLM, but whatever, building a career for himself. And also getting into the church community. Because, yes, I mean, I don't know what all the bad stuff is about the LDS, but I'm pretty sure that there are real people who believe
Yeah.
in it as well. And that was a choice he had to make. So he either integrates with the real wholesome community or he
Becomes that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think they both were victims of their
Of
own.
their choices.
Yes, they chose to be those people. And it's sad because it's a waste of life.
Yeah.
But
And I mean,
obviously,
both of them could have had, because of their backgrounds, both of them could have had happy endings, you know? Which I
definitely.
mean, it's true for anybody. And hindsight is 2020.
Oh my God, that's like it's a terrible
Very
story.
depressing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And how do we even get out of that now?
I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that's it for our episode 2, everybody.
Thanks for joining us on the second leg of our episode 2 tour. Sorry for depressing everybody.
Don't apologize.
I take it back. Not sorry.
And
And
same time, same place next week.
oh yeah, and what you have to look forward to is the beginning of our Spooktober series, where we're gonna get a little bit spooky with our episodes.
Yeah,
We
I'm
don't yet
actually
know what that will entail. Some vengeance demons, maybe.
a little bit of the occult.
A cult.
Should be fun.
Yeah. So subscribe, like,
Comment,
and
share.
comment, share, do all of that stuff. Engage, and give us 5 stars for
Everywhere.
everything, all of the time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.